Hello again. Again, we're going to have another brief video here. Sorry, I've been taping a lot. You can tell my throat's getting scratchy. We're going to look at adding and subtracting decimals. Now, this is a concept you're familiar with. We did this last year in 6th grade. We know how to add and subtract decimals. The only difference is now we're going to also apply the rules that we know for adding and subtracting integers. So we're going to be dealing with both positive and negative decimals. So now we have two sets of rules we need to remember. We need to remember how to add and subtract decimals, as well as remembering our rules for adding and subtracting integers. And again, if you've forgotten those, you can go back, rewatch those videos to refresh your memory. So what I've given you here is just the reminder, when we're adding and subtracting decimals, the most important thing that we need to do is to make sure that we have our decimal aligned. So I've given us a problem here, and I've shown you, I drew the red line. We align our decimals, we write our decimal and the answer in the same spot, and then just add these together. And if you need to, you can always add your zeros as place value holders. I don't always do that. I tend to do just the mental math and line it up by sight. But if you want to add your zeros, feel free to. So we'll do a few problems just to get used to this idea here. So here you'll notice we're adding together two numbers. Now we're going to go back and we're going to think about our rules for adding integers. I have opposite signs, which means I'm going to wind up subtracting the two values. So I'm going to take the absolute value and subtract the smaller from the larger. The absolute value of 2, negative 2 is 2. The absolute value of 0.7, or 7/10, is 7/10. Now remember, if you don't see the decimal, it's after the whole number. If there isn't a decimal following it, we don't write the decimal in, so that's fine. When you're subtracting, I always suggest writing in that 0 as a placeholder, because in this one, we're going to have to borrow. And if you don't write that 0 in, you're probably going to get confused. So make sure you're writing your placeholders in. So here I'm going to borrow from my 2. 10 minus 7 is 3. My decimal goes in the same place, and my answer, 1 minus 0, is 1. So I have 1.3. Then we want to go back, since we were adding two different signs, we were adding two different signs. That means we need to figure out what the sign of our answer is. So we're going to go back and we're going to look at what was my larger digit. Well, 2 is greater than 7/10. My 2 is negative in the original, so my answer is negative 1.3. So we're still doing the same thing we've been doing. We're just combining two different things that we've learned now. So here you'll notice I have subtraction. If you'll recall, when we're doing subtraction with integers, we change it by adding the additive inverse. Then we can just follow our rules for addition. Now I'm adding two numbers that have the same sign. So if you'll recall, that means I just add the absolute values and keep the sign. So I've got 7, and I'll add my placeholder. I'm adding to that 6.1. My decimal goes in the same place. I do my addition. Both of these were negative, so my answer is negative 13.1. If we come down here, again, I have subtraction. So remember, whenever we subtract, we add the additive inverse. Now I'm simply adding two positive numbers, which we've been doing for a while. Line up your decimal. You want to add your placeholder 0. I wind up with a positive 8.87. And here the big thing is just to remember that you're rewriting it so that you don't get confused. All right, here I have a simple subtraction. The only thing here is I'm going to have to remember, because this is actually a smaller number, so this we can just do like regular subtraction. We just have to remember that we're going to have to borrow in this one. And this is usually what throws kids off. So I've got the 8 on the top. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my placeholders already. Because I know that I'm going to need them. Line up my decimal. And keep in mind that we need to borrow. So I'm going to borrow from the 7. Make that into a 10. I'm going to borrow from this. I'm going to borrow from this. I'm going to borrow from this. 10 minus 9 gives me 1. 9 minus 0 gives me 9. 9 minus 9 gives me 0. 9 minus 0 gives me 9. Keep my decimal in the same place. And keep my 7. So the big thing to remember on that one or something like this is always drawing your placeholders there when you're subtracting, so that you remember to borrow correctly, because that's the most common mistake. If you try to do that in your head, you're going to mess up the borrowing and you're going to wind up with crazy numbers. All right, our final one here, we're adding, and you'll notice we're adding two numbers with like signs, which means I'm going to add the digits together and keep those signs. So 4.1 plus 123 10,000ths. And again, you can add in your placeholders. 3 plus 0 is 3, 2 plus 0 is 2, 1 plus 0 is 1, 1 plus 0 is 1. My decimal goes in the same place. 4 plus 0 is 4. Both of these were negative, so make sure that we write our negative sign in our answer. Again, remember, if you're confused, slow it down, pause, rewind, watch those again. If you've got it, good job. Keep moving on. Have a great night. Feel free to ask questions in the usual places, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.